Welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, and thank you for joining me on this TJPS special report. Tonight we're going to be speaking about what's going on in the country in terms of ICE terrorizing communities all over the United States, as well as the militarization of American streets, as during the 2024 campaign, Donald Trump said that he would be doing this because the American people, in his eyes, specifically those on the left, are the enemy from within, as well as the National Guard being deployed all across the country. Tonight is a special report that essentially starts with this guy, Stephen Miller. Of course, Stephen Miller is the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, and he is known essentially as the architect of some of the most diabolical and incendiary plans from the Trump White House. He is really the brains essentially behind the administration, one of them. And recently, Stephen Miller, Deputy White House Chief of Staff, he went on national TV and he did an interview. And so while he's answering the question here, he stops. And it's not a glitch. It's very short. It's a 56-second exchange. Watch.
Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue. We'll try to fix that and get back to you after a quick break.
So again, he did not glitch there. There was no loss of communication. What happened is that he said the quiet part out loud. Right before he paused, he said, quote, "Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority," end quote. And he just stops there. And he pauses. And after that, the host, sort of like takes it to commercial break. And when they return, the interview continues, but he never says anything about plenary authority again. But by this point, it is already too late, because what he is alluding to is another tactic by this authoritarian regime. Another tactic that they are seeking to use, because what is plenary authority? According to Cornell Law School, it is defined as effectively absolute power, which of course only a dictator would have, essentially sidelining the legislative and the judicial branch. So yeah, this was not a glitch. It was quite literally saying the quiet part out loud. Because of course, the president of the United States does not have plenary authority, but that is their desired goal for their playbook. Because, of course, when you talk about Project 2025 and the way that they have been preparing for this for really, 5 decades, it's the expansion of presidential power, the belief that the president of the United States themselves is all powerful. Therefore, they do not have to answer to Congress. They don't even have to listen to the Supreme Court effectively. You sideline the legislative and you sideline the judicial branch. And what you get is a culmination of dangerous actors in the executive branch who believe that the president of the United States has absolute power. Therefore, they can do whatever they want. And so it's Trump, but it's really also the entire movement that is behind him of the Project 2025 movement. The dangerous actors that I've been talking about here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. And how really they're behind this whole movement and how dangerous that is. And so with regard to deploying the National Guard as a tactic to scare and discourage dissent and protest, we've seen numerous examples of the Trump administration sued because, they're claiming the necessity to deploy the National Guard under U.S. Code Title 10, Armed Forces. But by using this code as a justification, Trump is claiming that there is a rebellion against the United States, which is why they keep throwing the terms around like insurrection. Put a pin in that for a second. But with all these deployments and overt abuse of power, Trump has been sued again and again and again by the states seeking to stop this. States are saying there is no legal basis for you to be sending in the troops because none of the statutes under that U.S. code have been met. You are doing this effectively against our will, and we are going to fight back. Oregon, for example, recently sued the Trump administration, challenging the deployment of 200 Oregon National Guard troops. They said this was a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, a violation of the 10th Amendment, and also essentially saying that the claims here were baseless and hyperbolic regarding protest. They won. U.S. District Judge Karen Emmegert, Trump appointed, by the way, blocked it by issuing a temporary restraining order. Trump then tried to get around that by sending 300 California National Guard members to Oregon. Another judge approved that motion to block Trump from mobilizing troops from any U.S. state to Portland. And then, of course, yesterday afternoon, a federal appeals court ruled, essentially giving Donald Trump the green light to deploy the National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon. And in case you are concerned about where their loyalty lies here and what's that's going to sort of be like. This was recently the Oregon National Guard General.
To answer your question, I don't want to speculate on what level of training they will be trained in or what they will be authorized to perform as far as rules for the use of force. The Title 10 headquarters will provide that training to them. It is my understanding, however, that protective crowd control will be one of the things they're trained upon, and I will provide my advice to the Title 10 commander that Oregon National Guard men and women they serve two purposes. One, to defend America, and two, to protect Oregonians. And so by serving this mission, they will be protecting any protesters at the ICE facility. That's my desire. Now, to answer your question, full force is not a doctrinal term that the Army uses. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, and I don't want to speculate as to what level of force.
In defending what Portlanders are saying about their city and the need for troops.
Well, Senator Brock-Smith.
Thank you, General, for being here and your presentation, and God bless you and our National Guard as they move forward with this deployment.
Chair Manning, may I make a request of this committee?
Sir, please.
And your colleagues in both the House and the Senate?
Please.
My number one concern is the protection and the care of my soldiers while they're deployed on this mission. And many of our citizens will not see a distinction between our Oregon National Guard, citizen soldiers, and ICE agents, Federal Protective Service agents, and other federal agents. And I would just like to request of each of you, and please pass this on to your colleagues, that our soldiers we're the home team, and our job is to protect and serve Oregonians, and we follow lawful orders, and that's what we're doing, and to please treat them with dignity and respect as fellow Oregonians. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Quote, "We follow lawful orders." Once again, that was the Brigadier General Alan Gronwald saying that he will be protecting protesters and following lawful orders if it were to come to the fact that the Oregon National Guard were to be deployed. So once again, this is something that a lot of people really have been talking about and sort of looking to for that moment that if the military is deployed on the streets of American cities against American civilians, that they will not, shoot them, that they will not engage in armed combat against their own citizens, which of course they are designed to protect. But this is an example here of the Oregon National Guard commander saying, hey, if we're deployed, we're going to be protecting protesters and federal property. We are not going to be engaging in any type of pushing back on protesters and engaging in violence as this administration is effectively seeking for. That's what they want, a confrontation. I will just say that the resistance movement in Oregon is both stern and comical. Recently, the citizens rallied in the streets for an emergency edition of the annual World Naked Bike Parade. bike ride. Now, traditionally, this happens in the summer, but because of Trump's recent threats to send in the troops and quell protest, they decided to organize immediately. Janine King called the nude ride, quote, a quintessentially Portland way to protest. We definitely do not want troops coming into our city, end quote. Earlier this month, the Trump administration authorized the federalization of 300 Illinois National Guard members after vowing for weeks to do so. You'll recall back in September, Trump threatened the city of Chicago by posting this on Truth Social, quote, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. So again, this is the President of the United States posting this AI-generated image of him sort of sitting here on buildings, Chicago's burning behind him. And you have military helicopters because, of course, that's what the President of the United States does. Threaten their own citizens, threaten to go to war against their own cities. Of course, not only just alluding to, changing the name of the Defense Department per executive order, but also declaring war against an American city. And so immediately after this notice, Illinois joined Oregon in pursuing litigation against the Trump administration to block this order. A federal judge temporarily blocked the deployment for 2 weeks, finding insufficient evidence of a rebellion that would justify the necessity for their presence. So again, this is a pending situation here as we're watching this play out, really trying to stop the deployment of National Guard troops to Chicago. In response to that, of course, Texas Governor Greg Abbott approved sending in the Texas National Guard for the Trump administration to Illinois. Here they are. A judge has ruled recently that they can stay in Illinois for now, but they cannot activate. It should be noted also that Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania has signed onto a lawsuit where this is the subject matter. Of course, joining the chorus of resistance litigation. In addition to this, Governor J.B. Pritzker pressured the chair of the National Governors Association and its members to denounce the deployment of the Texas National Guard members to Illinois, or he would have no choice but to withdraw their organization, essentially but to withdraw Illinois from the organization. California Governor Gavin Newsom has also agreed, saying the same for his state. Surprisingly, the Republican governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, who chairs this organization, has criticized the Texas National Guard deployment to Illinois. It was recently that members of the Guard were sent back home because of their weight. Of course, this comes after the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has said that fat troops, direct quote, by the way, make the military look bad. Of course, at the beginning of this month, in a horrifying nighttime ICE raid, which included hundreds of armed federal agents, police, riot trucks, smoke grenades, and Black Hawk helicopters, you would think this is a war zone, but they ravaged an entire apartment building here in the U.S. Dozens of residents, including children, were pulled from their home and zip-tied, some of them without any clothes. This was in Chicago, here in the United States. I said in a statement, of course, that they were only pursuing Venezuelan gang members, as they've been saying this entire time, as they keep arresting innocent people who have been here for years, who are law-abiding, and who have no criminal record. But that's their justification for going after, like the guy in your local bakery, for going after your local teacher. We're pursuing gang members and people with criminal records. But of course, again, in Chicago, U.S. citizens and innocent people were detained and traumatized. This was reporting here from ABC 7 Chicago News.
I spoke to one woman who actually lives in this building, and she says she was detained by ICE agents overnight, and she says they took everyone and then asked questions later.
They just treated us like we were nothing.
Patricia Fisher says she came out to the hallway of her apartment complex on the corner of 75th and South Shore Drive in her nightgown around 10 Monday night, only to find ICE agents yelling police.
It was scary because I've never had a gun put in my face. They asked my name and my date of birth and asked me did I have any warrants, and I told them no, I didn't.
She says she was then handcuffed and released around 3 a.m. Fisher says she was told if anyone had any kind of warrant out for them, even if it was unrelated to immigration, they would not be released. Citizen-At video shows the chaotic scene overnight. Neighbors tell us there were dozens of ICE agents. Neighbors like Ebony Watson says they ducked for cover as they heard several flashbangs go off.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other. That's all I kept asking. Where's the morality? Where's the human? One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
Watson says budget trucks and military-style vans were used to separate parents from their children. Other neighbors say they saw agents destroying property to get in the building.
And they had a big 15-inch chainsaw with a round blade on it, cutting this fence down. We're under siege. We're being invaded by our own military.
The FBI did confirm this morning that they did help the U.S. Border Patrol carry out a targeted immigration enforcement operation in this area, and they say they have been supporting these efforts at the direction of the U.S. Attorney General.
Once again, that was reporting from ABC 7 Chicago News on what exactly happened there. Again, this was in Chicago, Illinois. So in addition to the members of the Venezuelan gang that they supposedly detained, these were also black residents. These were also black residents and innocent people who were sleeping in their homes. And at the crack of dawn, this happens. This happens in the city of Chicago. You have freaking Black Hawk helicopters like they're in a war zone. You have, federal immigration officers kicking down people's doors, ravaging their entire apartment building, putting zip ties on babies, and innocent children, throwing them in the back of U-Haul trucks. I mean, this was outrageous. Yet this is happening again and again and again on U.S. soil under orders by the President of the United States, who has declared war against his own citizens. This is happening on this soil in this country. Daryl Ballard told CNN, quote, "I've been on military bases for a good portion of my life, and the activity I saw, it was an invasion." End quote. Once again, that is a citizen of this country describing what he saw here. That our own military is being used against our own citizens. A federal judge recently ruled that the warrantless arrest made by ICE in Chicago at Liberty Restaurant to be illegal. The facility is now closed and, of course, up for lease, but still, this is a major piece of positive news in the fight to protect immigrant rights. She referenced a 2022 consent decree, which enforced federal limits on ICE officers' ability to arrest people without warrants or probable cause, and also ordered ICE to lift any conditions of the 11 workers who were detained for their release. So, of course, the atmosphere in the city is still very tense and terrifying as we're seeing scenes like this continue to emerge. I'm going to warn you that there is explicit language used in this video here. Watch. So again, this is a video here that you're watching. It's an ICE agent in a vehicle deploying tear gas onto a public street. We have reports that a 2-year-old child required medical care after inhaling this chemical irritant. Adults, of course, began vomiting on the sidewalk. A local elementary school was forced to lock down for recess due to the presence of the agents. People in cars nearby the scene reported that the tear gas was so destructive and detrimental that it caused their ears, nose, and mouth to run after the chemicals seeped into their cars despite trying to roll their windows up. Again, this is in Chicago. This is on U.S. soil. This here is a photo of a Chicago minister, of a Chicago priest being pepper sprayed by ICE. This is also footage, of course, of him being shot in the head with a rubber bullet. See how they're unperturbed after firing that shot? And he's immediately touches his head and he goes down to the ground as protesters run over to help him. Because of this, and because of what's happening in Chicago and the terror that ICE is wreaking and causing all across the city, What you are seeing is now a federal judge say, hey, ICE, you can no longer be doing stuff like that. Also, you now have to wear body cameras. And by the way, the body cameras actually have to be on to film what's happening. Because you are going so out of control. You're doing so much damage and causing terror and really just racially profiling people and abducting them off the streets. It is quite literally out of control. Seriously. What is happening in this country right now is horrifying. And it could happen to any one of us at any moment. Anybody's door, anybody's apartment building could be kicked down because ICE is going to come in to see if you have any, papers. But really, they're not even going to check for that. They're just going to be snatching people out their beds. They're going to be snatching people out their homes. This is what's happening on U.S. soil. And it's only getting worse. We have much more ahead tonight. Stay with us on this TJPS special report. Every day we're bombarded with headlines, loud, confusing, and sometimes designed to distract. But behind those headlines is a truth worth fighting for. I'm Jeremiah Patterson, host of The Jeremiah Patterson Show. And for the past 7 years, I've committed myself to uncovering what's real, what's right, and what's too often ignored. From breaking news and deep dive investigations to untold stories in history in today's fight for democracy. This work is my purpose. I don't just report the news, I care deeply about it and what it means. But to keep this work going and growing, I need your support. When you become a paid subscriber to The Jeremiah Patterson Show, you're not just backing independent journalism, you're fueling truth-telling in a time of disinformation. You're helping amplify voices the mainstream media too often leaves out. And you're joining a community that believes facts still matter. You'll get exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insight, and subscriber-only shows like the Unfiltered Podcasts and the Resistance one as well. But more than anything, you'll be part of a mission to inform, to expose, and to resist. I do this work because I love it, I do this work because it matters, and I do this work because it is essential. Because I believe journalism should serve people, not power, and because the truth still matters. So if my work has ever informed you, inspired you, or made you think, please consider becoming a paid member today to our website, tjpsnews.com, where you can become a member of the Founders Club for $150 a year, a member of the Press Corps for $75 a year, or a member of the Newsroom for just $7.99 a month. Once again, visit tjpsnews.com for more. Welcome back. So this here was in Chicago, Illinois this month.
What's your name?
Debbie Brockman, I work for WGN. Let them know.
I got you. Yep. Debbie Browning? Brockman. Sir, what's your name? In the back, what's your name? Say that one more time. What's your name? ¿Qué nombre? Sí. ¿Cómo se llama? Sí.
F***ing piece of ashes. You both, all three of you are. Hope you're proud of yourself.
A little out of breath today, huh, fellas?
Super good at your jobs, aren't you?
So again, this is footage of a reporter for WGN News who was detained by ICE and thrown into a van. She has now sued, quote, a WGN employee who was violently thrown to the ground and detained by federal agents in Lincoln Square last week is planning to pursue all legal avenues to hold federal immigration authorities accountable. A lawyer from the People's Law Office issued a statement Tuesday morning clarifying what happened to WGN Creative Services employee Debbie Brockman as she attempted to get to a bus, essentially to get on a bus for work on Friday. Brockman, who was not on duty for WGN when she was detained Friday morning near Lincoln and Foster Avenues, had been walking to the bus stop as part of her morning commute when she was, quote, attacked by Border Patrol agents, her attorney said in a statement. Ms. Brockman was taken to the ground, battered, handcuffed, and her pants were pulled down, exposing her bare buttocks. Brad Thomas, Thompson, one of Brockman's attorneys, said in a statement, quote, "No one should be treated like that in this city, in this country, or anywhere else in the world." So again, this was here on U.S. soil. This is in Chicago, Illinois. She's literally walking to catch the bus to get to work. She's not on duty for the news, and she's attacked. Again, this is in Chicago, Illinois. This week in Chicago, Illinois, we also saw ICE arresting a Chicago man whose teenage daughter is fighting cancer currently. This is ICE detaining a 15-year-old girl and the woman in the vehicle with her, violently throwing her to the ground.
I can't hear people. It's all back there.
You can hear her yelling, "I'm not resisting." Again, this is all on U.S. soil.
He's a citizen! He's a citizen!
Why are you running?
He's a citizen!
This is the moment federal agents held a 19-year-old man to the ground outside a Chicago convenience store.
I'm telling them I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm here. I'm legal. I'm born here. So they didn't try to hear none of that though.
The video was filmed after a Border Patrol vehicle collided with an SUV during an immigration enforcement operation. The collision sparked a hostile reaction from the nearby crowd. Yoreli Jimenez, who filmed the video, says she saw federal agents chasing occupants of the vehicle into a Walgreens store.
Get the
Jimenez told CNN she and two others ran into the store to film the incident, but were confronted by agents when they tried to leave. Jimenez and King say he was taken into custody, but released later that day.
I just graduated high school, so they could come from literally anybody, and that's not right.
CNN has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for comment about this incident.
Wait, you guys came to the school to do this?
They have a warrant. They haven't asked for a warrant. My name is Jocelyn from Cicero. They don't have a warrant. They didn't ask for one. They forcefully opened the door of the truck. It was locked. It was locked.
You're going to record this. Don't get any closer from here, right? Cool? Just stay back, please. He's being arrested for impeding.
This is not footage from a foreign dictatorship. This is happening here in the United States. ICE is tear gassing Chicago cops, throwing children to the ground, pointing guns at people, racially profiling people, and terrorizing communities. After that last video you saw there where ICE is arresting an individual outside of a school, Chicago staff are now assisting children traumatically affected by scenes like this, as of course it is disrupting classes and scaring children. In response to this, the resistance movement in Chicago has been powerful and persistent, beginning with this display on a building. They are making it very clear that ICE is not welcome in the city. According to New York Magazine, this is how the resistance movement is working. Quote, "For the past 5 weeks, in response to the Trump administration immigration crackdown known as Operation Midway Blitz, the neighborhoods have mobilized in experimental and collective ways. In their free time, or in some cases by actively taking time off work, everyday Chicagoans are building rapid response teams to keep eyes on the streets and follow the movements of federal agents. Some pass out whistles in bars and laundromats. Others keep vigils on Home Depots and taquerias. Activists have begun locating agents, suburban hotels, and hosting noisy protests outside. Some take shifts patrolling their neighborhoods on foot, in cars, or on bikes to alert neighbors to the presence of federal agents and to document their aggressive tactics and arrest." This was the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson.
If we allow this administration to take away due process for anyone, we will allow them to take away due process for everyone. They told us that this was about the worst of the worst. In reality, they are going after anyone who objects to families being ripped apart and community members being disappeared. ICE lies and people die. We cannot allow this to continue. We must take action more drastic than what we have taken before, because what we are seeing is a more radical attempt to undermine our democracy. And today we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids. Our school parking lots are not for ICE to load their weapons. They are for Chicagoans who drop their kids off to learn. Our libraries are not for ICE to prepare for a raid. They're for Chicagoans to read and relax. Our parks are not for ICE to set up checkpoints. They are for Chicagoans to play and enjoy. Private establishments can partner with us to make it clear that private property is private property, and ICE cannot enter establishments without a valid warrant. Private entities may voluntarily choose to display signage to designate their property as part of a citywide network of community spaces that stand together in affirming the safety, dignity, and belonging of all of our residents. By extending this protection beyond city-owned land, the order builds a broad civic shield that limits the reach of harmful enforcement practices. It strengthens neighborhood solidarity, and it reaffirms Chicago's role as a welcoming city. The fact is, we cannot allow them to rampage throughout our city with no checks or balances. Nobody is above the law. If we break the law, you should be held accountable. If Congress will not check this administration, then Chicago will.
Again, that is the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, admonishing ICE's terror campaign in the city. We are seeing ICE in other cities as well across the country, including New York, where 4 U.S. citizens were arrested on Canal Street yesterday. As this intensifies, ICE raided Chinatown, which sparked immediate resistance with demonstrators chanting "ICE out now."
Can you chill? There's no need. There's no need. Whoa. Public street, man.
New York Attorney General Letitia James is urging residents to share videos and photos of ICE. This is the federal action reporting form that people are being asked to fill out. According to exclusive reporting yesterday from the San Francisco Chronicle, the Trump administration is sending more than 100 ICE officers to the city. This, of course, is a precursor to sending in the military, as Trump recently said on Fox News that he wants to do. California Governor Gavin Newsom fought back on that, saying, do it. See what happens.
We're going to be fierce in terms of our response. We're going to be focused, and quite literally, this is the lawsuit that I will file within a nanosecond of any efforts to send the military to one of America's great cities, San Francisco, that is enjoying 60% reduction in homicide, or rather homicide reduction that's the lowest it's been in 60 years. It's one of the safest large cities in this country that's experienced an economic rebirth and growth. Only Donald Trump can wreck that. And we will push back with clarity and conviction, and we'll continue to win in court.
Quote, this is the lawsuit I will file within a nanosecond. Once again, that is California Governor Gavin Newsom, not kidding around here, not joking about what's going to happen if Donald Trump sends in the military to San Francisco. So, of course, they start by sending in ICE because it's federal immigration responsibilities. And then they send in the military because they say, oh, things have gotten so out of hand. We need to save this city. We need to stop the violence. It's false pretext. So again, what they're doing here, and the consistent theme over the course of this report, which I've really tried to highlight in getting footage and pictures and articles, is that they are breaking the law. They are claiming that they are enforcing the law. They are trying to turn dissent, which is legal, by the way, and protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution, which they are eviscerating, which no longer technically exist because of what they're doing here. They're turning dissent into terrorism. They're portraying dissent. Anybody that disagrees with what is happening, that is now considered terrorism. Therefore, it's insurrection. And that's their end goal here, to invoke the Insurrection Act, to have complete control over, cities in this country. Because, of course, once you do something like that, then, there won't be elections. Because, hello, there's an insurrection. Martial law's in effect. You can't have elections. That's the end goal here. That's their end goal here. I've been speaking about that on this show here for a while. The end goal is to continue to create these manufactured crises in specifically democratic states and cities, to send in the military every single time, and to create a situation where it is so unhinged on their part that we need to invoke the Insurrection Act, cancel elections. Things are too unhinged. I mean, think about what they're doing, like with the general speech, for instance. Gathering all the top generals in the country, making sure that their allegiance is pledged. What you're going to do for us. Again, this is the United States military being politicized. This is modern day Nazi Germany here in the US. Not to mention, back when Nazi Germany was a thing, there were people in this country that believed that we should have been fighting on that side. I remember when Elon Musk did the Nazi salute on Inauguration Day, people were like, oh, fascism has finally made it to America. Nazism has finally arrived in America. No, it did not. Per our history, it has already been here. It already was here. This is just the reiteration of that movement. This is just that movement that never truly died, gaining momentum again. This is what's happening. ICE is the modern day 21st century American Gestapo. They are terrorizing communities and they do not care. Their faces are covered. Random people are being, you have random ICE agents running after people, throwing them in vans. This is what's happening on American soil in this country. Terror at home. ICE, militarization, and authoritarianism. Thank you for watching this TJPS special report. Please be sure to comment any suggestions, questions, or your thoughts on this video. If you're a fan of the Jeremiah Patterson Show, please recommend it to your family and friends. You can also support us by donating financially, as this is independent journalism, and we rely on your donations to continue this crucial work. Another way you can support the Jeremiah Patterson Show is by becoming a paid member to our website, tjpsnews.com, where you can also become a free subscriber by just signing up for the email list so that you never miss out on any updates related to TJPS News. I will see you again tomorrow night for the TJPS Evening News Show, where it will officially air every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to stay tuned. We have a special guest. More about that coming soon. If you have any questions, news topic requests, or would like to do a collaboration, you can email me tjpsnews@gmail.com. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, as well as YouTube. All right, everyone, I'll see you again soon.